Hi everyone, I just wanted to give you a quick little lesson on how to find some specific consumer survey data from Euromonitor. This will be particularly good for doing consumer analysis and also segmentation, targeting and positioning when you're looking at that within your plans. So let me just start. So I've already got one video on how to look at industry data on Euromonitor, so hopefully most of you know how to get there, but in case you don't, what you need to do is actually go to the library. You need to go through Euromonitor through the library down to library research databases. It's Euromonitor, so E all the way down to the bottom, and from there you'll get into the Euromonitor space. You may have to click a little button saying you accept when you first enter this. I've already been in it today. So anyway, when you come to the home screen, right, you know that we've looked previously at industries and consumers and things like that. I'm going to show you how to get to what's called the consumer lifestyle survey. So you go to consumers here and then click lifestyles. And from there you can actually see that they've got a survey here. So you need to just go into that and that will put you onto the interface for that survey. Voice of the Consumer Lifestyle Survey. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to go through a couple of ways to find information here and just tell you a bit about what's on the screen. So you can see that it automatically comes up with a particular question here. I look for healthy ingredients in food and beverages. That is one of the many questions that are asked on this survey, and in particular in the section on dietary preferences and dietary restrictions. So you can actually see there's a bunch more that you can look at. I'm trying to limit my intake of refined sugar, etc. So there's that particular a menu here. Now, if you wanted to change topics, you could go into this area here and you can either search for particular topics, or I find it more useful just because sometimes you don't necessarily know if you're using the same terms. I often come down here. So for instance, if I wanted to look at something like travel, or travel preferences, something like that, then I could come down here, and I can have a look at months of travel. Generally, when you're looking at each of these, sometimes when you click on it, you'll find that over here the year changes, or they don't have all the years, from 2015 to 2022, and I think that's because they haven't asked that particular question in that year. This is relatively recent for that one in 2021, so you might have to use some data that's not from 2022, for instance, which is where we are now. So anyway, if I wanted to look at particular items, there's a couple of areas for, the consumer decision-making process, as well as segmentation, that I think are particularly important for you to look at. One is called path to purchase. So you can come down here and really we're talking about the path to purchase, so things like how they purchase, the channels they use, the information sources, a whole series of different types of, even sometimes the selection criteria, so evaluative criteria, etc. So when you have a look down, you'll notice that they have a whole series of product categories, and you can sort of drill down into each of those. Let's say we're looking at travel. You can see they've got purchase channels, and they've got data for all of these years. They've got payment type, and so there would be a series of questions there. That's obviously from only 2015 to 17, and channel as well, right, which goes up to 2020. So let's say I want to look at where they're purchasing their travel from. I could apply that. And basically it gives me a few different ways. So we're talking about computer, tablet, didn't purchase it, smartphone, or in-store person. So I can basically click on any of those questions and it will come up as the highlighted one here. So if I want to know, what's happening in terms of people purchasing travel from their smartphone, I can go into there and find information. So that's that panel there, right? That's where you sort of focus in on a particular topic area. what you'll notice over in this part here, once you get into this, so this is purchasing travel on a smartphone now, that is what we're highlighted. And so what you can see here is that it's currently focused on country. So it will go through and you can find data on all the different countries that they've surveyed, including the UAE, right? And so you can tell from here that, in 2022, 39.6% of people in the UAE have bought travel from a smartphone, right? And that has decreased from 2021, which was 45, decreased again from 2019, which is at the highest at 50.9%. So we can see that's actually started to decrease over the years. You can also have a look at each one of these to see what's happening with the trend there. So that's one way to gather information on the particular country. You can actually go in though and base that on a whole number of different things. So you can look at age and get an idea globally, by age, are they purchasing? We can see that actually it's much more common for younger people to purchase their travel on a smartphone, for instance. Now, one of the really good things about this, because you might want to know specifically, say for example for the UAE, which age groups are buying travel on the smartphone, and you can do that by using this custom comparison tab. So what that allows you to do is to do up to 3 comparisons. So when I look at this, if I want to, and it's got a series of things like age of children, race, ethnicity, etc. So you can click on any of these and even some segments here and see exactly what they're doing. So for instance, if I wanted to look at my country, I can actually deselect. I don't want all of them. And I can go down and have a look at UAE and just click that. And then you're going to need to tick this to say that's what I first want to compare. So within the UAE, I want to know by age group, and there's different ways to do that. So this will give me within the UAE, and if I apply that, I can actually add another comparison if I want, but I'm just going to apply that. So I can see within the UAE, purchasing travel on a smartphone. Interesting. Here you'll notice that this is the total for the UAE. So they'll give you the total for that category, and then they'll give you the breakdown by age. So what we can see is actually, unlike what we saw for the global averages of these, it almost looks like older people are also buying on the smartphone to a similar degree to young people. All right, perhaps with, if we're looking at 2022 only, we can see that actually for 2022, it's the 30 to 44-year-olds that are highest. Now, one thing just to note here on the side, you'll notice these numbers across here, and this is your sample. So from 555 people in 2019, that's the sample that they had for this survey. So what you'll notice with the 60 plus, because there's not many 60 plus year olds in terms of the population, you'll notice that the sample sizes are really small, which is often why you're getting a really big change occurring, because it's not really a big enough sample to, 9 people is not enough to have a generalizable sample for that question. So you just got to be a little bit careful about making any inferences about that, where here you might say, in 2021, 52.8% of 60 plus year olds were buying travel on the smartphone, but that's really only with 10 people answering that question, so it might be skewed. So that's how you basically can look at consumer data. This is really useful for wanting to know a whole series of things. You can look at things like going down in particular to some of their preferences, eating habits here. You could look at house and home, pet ownership. So really what you want to do is have a look for your product category, but also you can look at more general consumer trends as well. If you look down here, you can see things like personality traits and attitudes, and remember that you can then do custom comparisons with that. So you can look at it within the UAE for gender, for a particular age category, It could even be by family size, all those kinds of things. Some other areas that are particularly good for marketing plans are the shopping area. So here it talks about habits, shopping frequencies, attitudes, motivation, information sources, if you're thinking about information search, trust in sources, marketing influences by channel. That would be great for your communications section. So when you go into there, you might want to check out sort of what the questions are and whether they relate to, and they're going to help your strategy down the line if you understand sort of where they're getting their information from or where they're being influenced by from marketing. That will help you to develop your 4P strategies for sure. See, maybe you can see where they're getting their information from: friends and social media, in-store advertising. And again, remember, you can then look at that in relation to particular segments or custom comparisons for that. So hopefully that's been really useful. There are other ways to get sort of broader consumer information. So for instance, they have some trends, particularly, so that, mega trends, global consumer trends, things like that. But again, if you wanted it to be much more specific and to your product category, particular consumers, segments, and that kind of stuff, I think it's good to have a look at the survey. All the best with your research.